what do you think for you are practices that you use for benefiting rotation?
I've been doing a lot more heavy loaded rotation work, heavy cable rotation work, where I'm using the entire stack. And then I'll do dynamic rotation with the med ball throws. You see a lot of guys, they're hurt or they're just burnt out. I think you can trace a lot of that back to poor fitness and a lack of conditioning. You can really utilize a lot of the strongman specific work in a conditioning format, like the loaded carries. You can do that with a sandbag carry for 50 feet, 15 rounds every minute on the minute.
Now you're working with some of these high-level strongman athletes. How are you programming their nutrition with their training?
We'll utilize a lot of intra-workout nutrition because those longer duration sessions, multiple shakes, utilizing coconut water, highly branched cyclic dextrin, aminos, electrolytes, creatine. There is no better performance enhancer, optimizing fluid and electrolyte intake, especially around training.
So what's been going on, dude?
Well, I guess a lot. So I was here, back in February. So it's been a few months in my first year of business, Hammer and Chisel Performance. So I think we talked about it a little bit when I was on last, made the move away from football. So this is my first football season, not on a strength and conditioning staff.
That's got to free up some time.
Yeah, a little bit, but you know what? I'm busy. I'm busier than ever. The difference is I just set my own schedule. But it's different, right? When you're working in football or really any traditional job, you've got a schedule set for you. And when the day is done, you get to kind of turn off. Work's done for the day. Whereas now working for myself, there's no one setting a schedule for me. It's all on me. So I've had to figure out how to turn off. I'll be like at home on the couch and I'm just thinking, should I be doing more? Do I need to be filming another video, doing more marketing, coming up with more ideas? So that was something that I, had to work through early on. But, I figured out some structure, got a good little schedule set, and things have been awesome. I got my podcast going, YouTube channel, working with a lot of clients that I'm loving working with them at a coaching capacity. So it's been a fun year.
Yeah, and you had a baby this year too.
Had a baby, yeah. Got a little 9-month-old guy at home. He's a little redhead. He's crawling around like a maniac.
Like 70 or 80 pounds by now.
You know what? He may have gotten his mom's genetics. He's in the, kind of mid-range percentile for his head diameter is like 88th percentile.
Oh, there we go. That's something to be proud of.
So maybe he'll grow into his noggin, but height and weight wise, he's kind of middle of the pack there.
How about you when you were a baby though? Were you like a big baby or did you, because you mentioned like you grew, but you had to fill in. So
right. I was pretty big. I was 10 pounds.
Okay.
So pretty big. And then I was always a tall, pretty lanky kid.
Yeah.
And then, I was 6'6", 180 my freshman year of high school. Wow. And then by the end of high school, I was, grew an inch, gained 90 pounds. So, and all that.
Pounds.
Yeah. And that led to some major issues. I had stress fractures in my feet from, filling out too quick, and had to have, major surgery. My brother, he had a crazy growth spurt too. He was, junior year of high school, he was 6 foot 140 and then blew up to 6'8" out of nowhere. And now he's playing offensive tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But he somehow like skipped the tall, awkward growth spurt phase. Like he just maintained his little guy athleticism as he got huge. Whereas me, I was, the tall, gangly, uncoordinated kid.
You weren't sure what to do with your giant feet.
Yeah, exactly. I was growing half an inch every week, so I couldn't figure out my own body.
Damn, I remember that shit hurts.
Yeah,
when you're growing.
Yeah, it was growing pains, and then I had, the stress fractures in my feet as I started getting heavier, and I had to get my Achilles tendon surgically lengthened because my
what?
Yeah, my tibias were growing, so long, so fast. The soft tissue just couldn't keep up with it. So I had these rigid, tight Achilles tendons, and that's part of why I got the stress fractures. I just had such poor ankle mobility that I just couldn't absorb force well, and I was getting heavier all of a sudden. So,
quick question to interrupt you.
Hit me.
Was this 3 grams or 3 milligrams?
3 milligrams. Whew. Why you buzzing?
I'm really buzzing. That's why I took it out for a second. But yeah, this is okay. 3 milligrams.
Milligrams. Okay. No, I'm on the baby dose now. I'll.
But you're 6'2". See, this is hitting me. You're 6'6", 300.
6'7". I'm gonna claim that extra inch. Yeah.
I'm 6'2". right?
Yeah.
I think this is hitting me much more than it hits you, buddy.
It probably is.
It really is.
If you nicotine,
That's great.
nicotine's a powerful drug, man.
He's a big boy over here.
Nicotine's a powerful drug.
It is.
Yeah.
That was the goal. You just wanted to come in and get us drugged.
You want to fuck me up, man.
Well, you guys are the ones trying to put the kratom on me.
No, we would never.
Okay.
So you're working with some high-level strongman athletes and stuff like
Yeah.
that now, and I know that you did a lot of strongman yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You were telling me the other day you did some really impressive farmer carry. I think you were telling me you did like 440 pounds per hand, which that ain't no joke to be walking around with 800 pounds.
Yeah, my hands still hurt from that training session years ago.
It is weird when I'm nowhere near the weights you're at, but when you just get near like a PR and you put the weight down, your hands are like crinkled. You're like, what the hell?
Oh yeah, like I'm peeling my fingers off of the handle. I mean, it's almost a pain tolerance exercise more than anything. But yeah, those super heavy farmer carries, your hands are just destroyed.
That really hits your nervous system like nothing else, I think. Nothing else.
Yeah. There's a strong link between grip and kind of neural readiness. In fact, like you'll see grip testing sometimes being used as a readiness test. Like you'll sometimes see programs have the athletes squeeze a grip dynamometer, and then if there's a drop off in grip strength, that may be an indication of neural fatigue. Whereas if you pop off a good number, okay, you're primed, you're ready to go. So
Okay. That makes me want to ask, because I don't believe that your hands are purely genetic. I think that you've also put a lot of work into those things, those fucking paws. So I know, a lot of people, I do a lot of stuff for hands and grip because of my martial art, right?
Please give him a compliment on his wrists and hands.
You could if you'd like,
those are some,
but you don't have.
Those are some thick wrists.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think we could stop the podcast right now. Let's just end right there. Take that clip, and that's the clip from this podcast. But what are things that you think athletes can do to strengthen their hands, strengthen their grip, for different types of sport? What would you suggest?
For sure. I think grip is an underrated trait for sure.
Yes.
I mean, you can go to as simple and fundamental as just doing like a pull-up bar hang. I mean, that's a good place to start, especially if you can do it, from ropes or towels. Like if you do a dead hang off the ropes or the towels, it's a really good way to build up that grip strength. And then it's also, if you apply it in an athletic setting, can make it competitive. And we would do that. I was at Troy University. We'd have guys do a grip hang off. So we'd have them face to face, hanging from the towels or the ropes. Who's going to give up first? And we'd also do it in place, holding farmer handles. You're a foot away from your opponent, staring them in the eye, just holding onto the grip. But yeah, I'm doing dead hangs. I think doing just loaded carry works, whether it's a dumbbell, kettlebell, trap bar, actual farmer handles, incorporating carrying. It's going to be great for grip, and you can apply it for work capacity, conditioning, general strength type stuff. And then also, doing just your rows and your pull downs, doing it without straps, things like that. But I think if you take a well-rounded, diverse approach, hang, carry, row, pull, all that sort of stuff.
Do you mess with a lot of because I think did you mention any fat grip stuff with any of the stuff you were doing?
Yeah. So
And what do you think about fat grip stuff?
So I really love using an axle bar or a fat bar. And honestly, it's not even necessarily so much for the grip component. Like I love pressing and having athletes press with a fat bar because it's just a wider diameter. So it distributes the weight across a wider surface area of your palm. You can grip it with
different
more
on your elbows and stuff.
It does.
Yeah.
So it just loads the tendons and connective tissue in the wrist, elbow, and shoulder kind of more evenly versus if you're, bearing down on a small diameter barbell, everything's kind of clenched up. So, we'd have our linemen pressing on fat bars in season, and it alleviates a lot of those shoulder, elbow, bicep tendon wear and tear. Donnie Thompson was actually the one who put that on my radar, getting into fat bar pressing. So yeah, I'll overhead, bench.
Donnie loves fat everything. He's got the fat pad. He's got it.
The Fatterpillar. Yeah, he's really coined the fat prefix.
How much does Donnie Thompson weigh now?
Oh, he's in good shape nowadays. I think he's probably like 250, 260.
Yeah, he's been on a big weight loss journey.
He's a lot healthier.
It's not on brand though.
Yeah, he's not.
Yeah,
he was
like
like 400 at some point.
That is a major rebranding for him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think people need to be careful with like kind of the programming of the grip because it does seem to be tied to the nervous system?
Yeah, I think you can probably overtrain it. I don't know that I've seen it too often where I can say, oh man, this guy's overtrained due to too much grip work. But I mean, just like anything, if you know, at the end of the day, you're training tissue and you're training muscle, whether you're training your abs, your calves, your grip. I mean, you certainly can overtrain it. So, you know, it's probably not something I would do daily. I'd program it in the same way I might program, you know, any other muscle group.
Yeah, if you do something really heavy on one day and your grip feels fatigued, maybe wait a couple days and then train it again.
But the thing is, like, you know, depending on what type of grip training you're doing, like let's say you're doing heavy, you know, farmer hold type grip work. Well, maybe it's not just taxing your grip, right? It's just picking up the crazy weight in general. I mean, that's going to be fatiguing in its own way. But I mean, like in athletic settings, I think grip's probably undertrained. So I can't really say I see much overtraining of the grip there. But in strongman, stuff like that, yeah, probably. But it's probably coming from the heavy weights in general.
So now you're working with some of these high-level strongman athletes.
Highest level.
You're helping them with their nutrition. How did this kind of come to be? Because I know you've been helping a lot of people with nutrition for many years now.
Yeah,
and I know that you have you know, specific ways that you're doing all that. But how did it come to be?
Yeah, so I made some just connections in the strongman world here in this past year. Our mutual friend Joe Ken, of course, he's gotten a lot more. Big House. He's gotten into coaching in strongman, and then a guy named Chad Coy. He's a coach who works with just a ton of strongman competitors, very well connected. And I started working with Chad as a nutrition client, and Chad was a client of House's for training. And then I did good work for Chad, and he was like, hey, would you work with some of my guys? And he referred a few competitors my way, and did a good job for them. And then they started kind of telling their buddies about me, and then started marketing a little bit on Instagram. Hey, here's some of my nutrition clients and my strongman guys, and some of them started doing well. And then next thing I know, I had a few top guys reach out to me, and then a few of them did really well at the Strongest Man on Earth competition out in Denver. And then, things kind of took off from there.
This guy's pressing 420 pounds over his head for a set of 8.
Yeah, that's fake weights. That's Lucas Hatton. He's a new nutrition client of mine. I'm
fake plates.
Really fired up to work with him. I mean, he's just an absolute monster, and he's got a shot to be one of the best American strongmen.
Is he the guy that you said broke the all-time record for log press?
The American record, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He just broke that at Strongest Man on Earth, where he took second.
But he must have hit close to 500 pounds.
Yeah, it was over 500. He hit 490 and then came back, and I don't want to butcher the number, but yeah, he's got a 500 plus pound
Does
log clean press.
Sadrunas Savickas still have the
If I'm not mistaken, I believe Big Z still holds it.
Like the overall record,
correct.
Not just the American record.
Correct.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's Big Z
like
who still has it.
512 or something.
Yeah.
He he was unbelievable.
Yeah, log clean and press, like it's one of the most it taxes you head to toe. I mean, it's essentially like a deadlift, a front squat into an overhead press. And I mean, you just have that weight bearing down on you. It's just suffocating you. Like if there was one lift.
You can't breathe.
No, especially if it's a max rep log clean and press, you cannot breathe. I've blacked out many times training a max rep log clean and press.
And I've always sucked at the overhead stuff. What are things that you're working on with?
By the way, Iron Bibby apparently has that record at 509.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. This isn't my knowledge, guys. This is me looking it up on the internet.
Yeah, no, Iron Bibby did end up breaking that record. That's why I was sick. Tentative about claiming it was Big Z, but yeah, it's he's a monster too.
When you're working on nutrition with these guys, what are you working on? Because I mean, these guys, right? Like you kind of think, oh, strongman, powerlifting, just eat some Snickers bars,
right?
Add some Snickers bars to your diet. You should be there, right?
That's the old school approach. Well, I mean, just like with anything, I'm going to look at them on kind of a individual needs basis. And the first thing we're going to look at is, okay, what phase of the year are you in, right? Are you in a competition prep? If you've got a competition coming up in 8 weeks, now's not the time to try to lose a bunch of body fat, right? Or are we in an off-season mode? And if we are in an off-season mode, are you a guy who could probably benefit from losing some body fat? And for most of these super heavyweight strongman competitors, they would benefit from losing some body fat. So a lot of these guys, once we get out of competition season, we're going to try to pull some body fat off of them. And that doesn't mean we're going to diet them down to be bodybuilders. We're not going to have them lose 100 pounds. But if we can pull off 20 pounds of body fat, that is going to allow them to then gain more muscle. It's going to allow them to improve their insulin sensitivity, their nutrient partitioning, their recovery, a number of health metrics. And, you take the 380-pound strongman competitor, you diet him down to 350, suddenly he's moving a lot better. He's got much higher work capacity in training. And you give them some, you allow them to tap into some traits that allow them to get stronger, right? Being big, mass moves mass, it has its place. Like, it might benefit a heavy log clean and press, but you have to be so well-rounded in strongman. You're an athlete. You have to be able to move. You have to be able to do max reps in 60 seconds. You have to have a very good base of conditioning. A lot of these big events, they're 2-day shows where you'll do 4 events, go to bed, wake up the next day, you got 4 more events. And you'll see the guys who are in really good shape and have a really good base of fitness are guys who can make it through all 8 events and sustain their ability and strength through the entire show. And getting leaner in the off season can be a big way to help to set the stage for that, So,
question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you work with Lucas Hatton. You work with a bunch of others too. Obviously, Mitchell Hooper, we've seen, he had an endurance background, and he's still doing very well. But have you noticed that some of these guys, actually my question is, do any of these guys have an endurance background before they came to strongman, like a sport background?
Well, Mitchell Hooper, he is the prime example. I mean, he was literally a distance runner before coming over to strongman. Now, I can't think of another guy who comes from a true endurance background, but a bunch of them did play football, did play other sports. I mean, they're just huge monster human beings, but no, Mitch Hooper, he's kind of he's a rare creature. He's a rare specimen. He's got a very diverse range of physical ability, and I think that's what's allowed him to be so successful. Is he's so well-rounded, and that's kind of the name of the game in strongman, is being a well-rounded athlete.
Because then my curiosity is for you, if you run into a strongman athlete that seems to have less than par work capacity, because obviously like Mitchell has great work capacity. I'm assuming Lucas probably has great work capacity too. But there are some guys that I would assume, maybe not at the very top, but they're very big, very strong, but their work capacity is fairly low.
Yeah.
How would you adjust things for that athlete to improve that?
Yeah. So, and you look at what Joe Ken, we just talked about him, he's doing a lot of coaching in strongman now. He has taken a lot of his training concepts from NFL football and he's applying it to strongman. And a huge part of that is conditioning. Yeah. Right. So
Joe Ken, by the way, has written books about this. He has like a tier system.
Yep.
That's very specific. So anybody wants to look up some of his work, you should check it out. Big House on Instagram. Big House Power, I think, on Instagram, right?
Yeah. But no, you can really utilize a lot of the strongman specific work in a conditioning format, like the loaded carries, and I've taken a lot of this stuff from Joe Ken, doing things like yoke carry for 50 feet, 15 rounds every minute on the minute. You could do that with a sandbag carry.
15
things like
rounds,
that.
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily start there. You might start at 10 rounds, and week 2 bump to 12 rounds, but doing a lot of, short duration interval type training, and then also incorporating just some general, good old aerobic work, right? Getting on the bike, walking, things like that. But for a lot of these guys, really hammering conditioning, I think is going to go a long way for them.
Yeah, I mean, you just need like a tremendous work capacity.
Yeah.
To get through these workouts and to be able to recover from these workouts.
Yeah, just having that work capacity, that base of fitness, it's going to allow you to effectively train and recover from that training and then be ready to train again the next day, right? Because strongman is so physically taxing, right? And there's just so many different types of events you've got to be good at. And the guys who are in really good shape and have a good base of fitness, you see them having a lot more success. And then, like I was saying, on competition weekend itself, you have 8 events over 2 days. the guys who are in shape are going to make it through that. Whereas you see a lot of guys, they're hurt or they're just burnt out by the end of day one. You know, and I think you can trace a lot of that back to poor fitness and a lack of conditioning. Not always, but I think that's a big culprit sometimes.
So a question that aligns with this is, I know that there's some, if there's a strongmen that are listening, there's some people who are thinking, well, you know what? I could probably just hit, there's certain PEDs that are allowing these guys to do that. That's why they have that work capacity. That's why they can train day after day. And some people don't really pay attention to the training aspect that is a bigger deal more than one would think the drugs are. So for someone who's thinking that, why is that thinking potentially flawed?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess with this kind of boom of the mitochondrial peptides and things like that, you probably do have people thinking, oh, and there's a shortcut I can take to
for that.
There's a peptide for that, right? I mean, a big part of it's like the grit and mental toughness side of things. I mean, if you're doing like a max log clean and press for reps in 60 seconds, or you're doing an event where you got to carry a yoke and sprint, do a arm over arm truck pull, like there is a gritty mental component to that just training to push through that adversity. I mean, that's a huge part of it that you'll never be able to replicate with any sort of drug. So no, I don't see any of these peptides of, you know, maybe they can augment some of this stuff, but no, it's not gonna, none of these things are gonna drive truly that aerobic capacity and the mental side of things. And like I said, I think that's a big part of it, just the mental endurance of going through the pain of it.
I'll interrupt here for just a second. One thing I've seen, and it's kind of hard to necessarily judge because a lot of times these athletes are bigger athletes. But when I compare powerlifters that are in non-tested federations versus powerlifters that are in tested federations, what I see sometimes is that the guys that are using, the guys that are on performance enhancing drugs, they seem to sometimes almost have, they seem like they actually need more recovery sometimes. Whereas you look at the IPF and USAPL, or if they even call it that anymore.
Powerlifting America.
There you go, Powerlifting America. If you look at the federation that is drug tested, a lot of those athletes tend to train the bench, squat, and deadlift actually with more frequency.
Yeah.
And sometimes, again, it's the smaller weight classes too, so sometimes hard to judge, and sometimes it's the female athletes. But in short, the reason why a female athlete will recover faster than a male athlete is because a male athlete oftentimes can just put it all on the line and recruit a lot of motor units. And I think the same thing is true when somebody is using PEDs. They can put so much into a training session that they can like blow it all out basically. And maybe they can only deadlift like every other week.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it doesn't aid in recovery. That's not my message here at all. Obviously it does aid in recovery.
But when you're able to move more weight because you're on more stuff, it's like you're causing more damage and you're having more neural drive. So.
Well said.
Yeah. I mean, when you're juiced up, I mean, you're a race car. And I mean, when you're driving a race car fast, like you got to be careful. Like you can easily blow that thing out. So it's true when you've gained super physiological levels of strength and neural efficiency, and suddenly you're handling loads that you otherwise would not have been able to. I mean, it is going to take more to recover from that in a lot of ways. And yeah, you know, the anabolics do help with recovery in a sense, but to your point, in a lot of ways, there's components of the system that are probably under recovering, that the anabolics are not accelerating any sort of recovery there. And the ability that they're giving you is incurring a bigger recovery deficit compared to, you know, the natural guys who they're not handling super physiological levels of strength. And then also because they're not able to get the same level of just tissue adaptation and neural efficiency from a drug, they've really got to lean more on movement practice and the specificity to help gain some of that strength.
Ryan, see if you can find some clips of Eddie Hall where he was like just violently deadlifting, and he wasn't even like, he wouldn't even pick the weight up much over his knees from what I can remember.
Yeah.
But he had to, you know, he had that technique very specifically so he could recover. So he would just like bend down and just take 700 and just smash the shit out of it, lift it as fast as he possibly could, but he wouldn't lift it very high. It was just like a partial movement. And he had that practice for a long time, kind of before he started getting into the 900,
Yeah.
1,000, and 1,100 pound deadlifts, kind of for the reason we're talking about here. This guy can recruit motor units, muscle fibers in ways that pretty much the world has never seen before when he did that 1,100 pound deadlift.
Yeah, for sure. And like the stronger and more advanced you get, just the more taxing these weights are. And you know, people might think, oh, it's relative, you know, 90% is 90%. Well, it's like if your 90% is 900 pounds,
Ooh, boy.
just the way that is going to tax your skeletal system, the soft tissue, tax you neurally, is very different than if your 90% is 405. Right. When you're pushing the boundaries of human capabilities to the very edge, you're going to be taxing the system a whole lot more and need a whole lot more recovery time. And it's not even just, you know, the non-tested guys, like even Ray Williams, you know, the one of the greatest squatters of all time, drug-free, you know, he would squat every other week.
Right.
You know, because, you know, he'd be squatting 800, 900, 1,000 pounds. He'd need 2 weeks to recover from that before he could train loads anywhere near that.
Yeah, it takes a lot to recover from these big ass lifts. How are you programming their nutrition with their training? Because you're not necessarily doing a lot of their training for these high level guys because they already have a coach or they already have their own ideas on exactly what they're going to be doing training wise. Because I know that you like to be cyclical with your carbohydrate intake and stuff like that. So yeah, like do you match it up on an event day, or was that where you throw the 1,000 grams of carbs at these athletes on those long ass days?
Yeah, so I'll coordinate with their coach. I'll get their training schedule. So I'm very aware of what the demands of the week are. And I'll try to get them carbed up. Usually they're big event days, which in Strongman, a big event day usually lasts 2 to 3 hours. So it's a long duration. It's a big day. If they're training in the morning, we'll load them up the day before. If they're training in the evening, we'll usually load them up day of. The first 3 meals going high carb. But yeah, when I know there's that big event day coming, we'll do a carb load. Like I said, either the day before or the day of, leading into it, depending on when it is. And then we'll utilize a lot of intra-workout nutrition because those longer duration sessions. So we'll use a lot of intra-workout carbohydrates. I'll have them make, multiple shakes utilizing coconut water, highly branched cyclic dextrin, aminos, electrolytes, creatine. And then a big underrated variable is the hydration part. You know, when you're that big, the electrolyte intake required, the fluid intake required is huge. And most people skimp on that. Like everyone knows, like, oh yeah, I need to hydrate. I need to get my electrolyte intake. Very few people actually follow through with that.
World's strongest man, by the way, sometimes is here in Sacramento, one of the hottest places in the United States.
Yeah.
And it's in the summertime.
Yeah, most people in general drastically underconsume potassium, right? So that's why I really like using coconut water. It's a very rich source of potassium. And when you've really optimized your sodium, potassium, magnesium, and fluid intake, there is no better of an acute performance enhancer than really optimizing fluid and electrolyte intake, especially around training.
Now you're also, we were talking with you earlier because you have that long background of being a strength and conditioning coach.
Mm-hmm.
And, when it comes to athletes and stuff, we're always fascinated to ask you because you've been around so many high level athletes.
And you are a high level athlete.
Yeah. Yourself playing for North Carolina. Just like how much does a weight room, there's always all this controversy and it's really hard to tell, how much the weight room helps. And if it does help, like, what do you think are the main contributing factors that could be helping an athlete from stuff that they would traditionally get from the weight room? Oh, this might be him ripping the weights off the ground right here.
Eddie Hall deadlift.
It's impressive to watch him just
you
just go right.
Shortens the range of motion.
Another cool thing, by the way, before you mentioned that, John, about Eddie is just like Eddie was just also somebody who came from a competitive swimming background.
That's right. He did have a swimming background.
And it's something that something he would use as like a recovery thing when it came to his training. You know what I mean? So it's one of those, just another one of those things that you can pull at that won't destroy your body, and especially since he has a high skill, but can still allow him to work on his the cardiovascular end and the work capacity end of like his heart and how he moves.
And he was in really good shape. I mean, you look at some of his training, he would do similar to like, the Matt Wenning warm-ups where it's like super high rep dumbbell work. Like Eddie he would pre-fatigue with super high rep, short rest dumbbell work before he'd even get into his, heavy barbell or event training. So, I mean, he was in really good shape. I mean, that's a good point with his swimming background. So just another example of a guy who's well-rounded as an athlete, a great base of fitness. And of course, he goes on to be one of the strongest men to ever walk the earth. But Mark, getting back to your question, when I got into strength and conditioning in football, I was a programming nerd and training was my love. And I wanted so bad for the weight room to be this huge impact on the football team. I wanted the program and the coaching of the movement, the squatting, the cleans. I wanted that to be like the thing that really took these guys next level. And I quickly realized in the college setting, it was a lot less that. These genetically gifted kids, if they sniff a barbell, they're going to get bigger, faster, stronger. Just don't break them. But the biggest impact we could have in the college setting were all the intangible factors. The guy I worked for most recently, Daryl Bauer, he had this analogy. He would say the strength coach, and really any coach, has two swords, and he'd compare it to the samurai. The samurai would have the long sword, which is kind of for defense, and they'd have the kill sword, the shorter, sharper sword. And the comparison he would make was the coach has two swords. One is the art of coaching, and one is the science of coaching. The science, that's the X's and O's, that's the program, that's the movement quality, that's the sports science. But then the art of coaching, that's your ability to communicate, your ability to push guys, your ability to develop buy-in, to instill the grit, the culture, the discipline, all those things. So, I walked away from football realizing that the art of coaching, all those intangible factors, have a way bigger benefit or a way bigger impact on the team. Just teaching these guys to push themselves past boundaries that they thought possible. The team building component, like I said, instilling that grit, that toughness, that culture, making the guys coachable, bringing the guys together, mentoring them. That's really where it was at. And then, going to the NFL level, you start to realize even how less of an impact I think the weight room often has in terms of getting guys purely just bigger and stronger. When you get to the really elite level of sports, these are guys who they probably don't need to get bigger. They probably don't need to get stronger. At that point, oftentimes we're using the weight room to make them more durable, more robust. We're getting their tissue prepared to change directions and sprint and decelerate and things like that. So the more advanced the athlete, talking field athletes, not strength athletes, of course, I think the weight room becomes a little bit more secondary. And I think earlier on in your development as an athlete, the weight room is probably more important. And then as you get more and more and more advanced, it starts to take a little bit more of a backseat.
And in a sport like football, I mean, you kind of just need to weigh a certain amount to play certain positions. And it's just helpful, right? It's just helpful to like weigh more. So I don't know if necessarily going into the weight room and, getting a lot more hypertrophy is necessarily the best way to go about doing things. But again, you do have to have a certain amount of weight on you to have the durability. So if you're a 185-pound running back and you're trying to be in the NFL and trying to last for a long time, I would imagine that you're going to have to probably lift some weights to at least hold on to some muscle mass.
For sure. And I don't want to say it's unimportant in the sense that, these guys don't need to lift. What I'm saying is like, you've got an NFL running back, and I'm like, how can the weight room benefit this guy? It's not we got to put 50 pounds on his squat, 50 pounds on his bench. He's going to be a better running back. But no,
that means you'll have more power.
Exactly. But no, to your point, but keeping him training, that is going to be crucial to his longevity in his career. The guys who, football season ends, then they just go to Cancun and they just, pack it in for the offseason. They barely train. Those are guys who get hurt the next season. Those are guys who fizzle out. So I think training and maintaining it in the off season is huge. I just think it's not so much a matter of just continuing to build, traditional top end weight room strength. It
is amazing how many athletes really don't train in terms of the weight room. Sometimes until they're sort of forced to, until they get into a specific college program, or until they're in the NFL, where you get paid, I guess, a little bit to even just to work out.
That's something I also had to come to terms with getting into strength and conditioning, was realizing, okay, these guys don't love the weight room the way I do. Like us strength coaches, we got into it because we love lifting, we love training. And then you realize, a lot of the guys you're coaching, they're football players or whatever sport you're coaching. And the weight room is secondary, right? It's just something to help augment their sport. So finding ways to get guys bought in to the weight room, goes a long way. And that's especially something we learned, or I took away from the NFL, is you've got these guys who, maybe they're a 16-year NFL veteran, they're pushing 40, they don't want to put a bar on their back anymore. And, maybe on paper, there's a more optimal way we could train them in the weight room. But a lot of times it comes down to finding like, hey, what's a way we can train this guy where he's going to be invested, he's going to be bought in, he's going to apply a lot of effort. And maybe on paper, it's not the best way to train per se, but if he's motivated, he's into it, he's training hard, we're going to get a lot more out of that guy compared to if we're, forcing him to squat and clean and do all these, traditional methods that, like I said, on paper might look better, but then he's not bought into it. He's in pain. He's half-assing it. And then you get nothing out of it.
And then maybe you give the guy options, right? You say, okay, well, we're just trying to get after your legs for today. What's one of these 5 things
for sure
you feel comfortable with? You want to pull the sled, you want to do lunges, you want to use the belt squat, right? And you're still targeting the legs, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not powerlifters. We don't need to specifically back squat. We just got to find, a way to, like I said, like you just said, train their legs. And okay, let's give them a few options. And then you mentioned pushing the sled, and you see their eyes light up. You're like, boom, this guy's pushing the sled, and he's going to get a lot out of that session, and it's going to go a long way. And especially with the genetically elite guys, it's incredible what small doses of a stimulus can do, right?
All right, Mark, you're getting leaner and leaner, but you always enjoy the food you're eating. So how you doing it?
I got a secret, man. It's called Good Life Protein.
Okay, tell me about that.
I've been doing some Good Life Protein. We've been talking on the show for a really long time of certified Piedmontese beef, and you can get that under the umbrella of Good Life Proteins, which also has chicken breast, chicken thighs, sausage, shrimp, scallops, all kinds of different fish, salmon, tilapia. The website has nearly any kind of meat that you can think of. Lamb is another one that comes to mind. And so I've been utilizing and kind of using some different strategy, kind of depending on the way that I'm eating. So if I'm doing a keto diet, I'll eat more fat, and that's where I might get the sausage, and I might get their 80-20 grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef. I might get bacon. And there's other days where I kind of do a little bit more bodybuilder style, where the fat is, might be like 40 grams or something like that. And then I'll have some of the leaner cuts of the certified Piedmontese beef.
This is one of the reasons why neither of us find it hard to stay in shape, because we're always enjoying the food we're eating. And protein, you talk about protein leverage all the time. It's satiating and helps you feel full.
I look forward to every meal. And I can surf and turf,
Yeah.
I could cook up some, chicken thighs or something like that and have some shrimp with it, or I could have some steak. I would say, the steak, it keeps going back and forth for me on my favorites. So it's hard for me to lock one down, but I really love the bavette steaks.
Yeah.
And then I also love the ribeyes as well.
You can't go wrong with the ribeyes. So guys, if you guys want to get your hands on some really good meat, you can head to goodlifeproteins.com and use code POWER for 20% off any purchases made on the website, or you can use code POWERPROJECT to get an extra 5% off if you subscribe and save to any meats that are a recurring purchase.
This is the best meat in the world.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything that you are taking, or because you've done Strongman before. So is there anything from Strongman because you're taking a lot of stuff from NFL to Strongman, but is there anything that you take from Strongman to and you think NFL athletes would benefit from?
For sure.
Not even just NFL athletes, people in general. Because I think Strongman is a unique sport where you see the monsters doing it, but a lot of the things the monsters are doing, someone who's not a monster can also do and benefit from.
Yeah, when I was in football strength and conditioning, I was trying to bring a lot of strongman stuff into what we were doing, especially for the linemen. But I'll give a few takeaways here. One thing I really learned was the value of overhead pressing. And you look around most weight rooms, most programs, and the flat bench press is so heavily prioritized.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been I'm not, an anti-bench press guy. Like, I love bench pressing, but I've sort of been on this crusade of like, why is the bench press like programmed the priority upper body lift in like every sports program?
Be careful what you're saying right now, John.
How much you bench?
Be careful, John.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Gonna hit the button.
in my opinion, if you are not a power lifter, unless you just, you love bench pressing, you want to put up a big lift for your own, personal goals or whatever, of all the pressing options out there, it's pretty low on my list in terms of the transfer.
I wonder why it is such a thing. I mean, maybe I helped with some of that, but I just like wonder why.
You've made millions off of the bench.
I know. Well, I'll just leave it there, I guess.
It's funny, but like I've tried to figure that out myself. Like, why?
I guess training the chest is kind of like fun, I guess.
But here's my thing.
Yeah, Arnold had
But then I'll counter people, be like, okay, well, what about incline bench? And then they're like, well, no, it's not the same. Right. And like I think incline pressing is a better hypertrophy.
Incline bench by far is better. It's just harder.
Yeah, for
sure.
So
no one wants to mess with it.
I think that's part of it's a few things why everyone loves the bench press. It's just what they've always done. Everyone's dad and their grandfather was bench pressing, and that's kind of all people know, and it's all they train, and they're really weak on overhead and incline, and they naturally just want to stick with what they know.
Usually if someone's good at incline, they're good at flat, but sometimes the reverse doesn't work.
I always say that. I always said that was my big takeaway from Strongman was I spent an entire year, I didn't bench press once, no flat pressing. I exclusively was doing standing overhead press, push pressing, high incline pressing. Built that up, and then I did a strongman competition, and then I had kind of an off season, a little transition. I'm going to play around with flat bench again. Bench for 3 weeks, crushed my lifetime PR, and I quickly realized, oh wow, building up my overhead press had huge carryover to the bench press. But I think there's something to be said for learning how to generate force through your upper body while your feet are in the ground, right? While you're having to engage your core. And something like a push press where you're having to derive power through your hips into your upper body. In my opinion, those, and I never want to get too overly sports specific in the weight room, like, oh, we're trying to replicate sports specific movement with lifting. But like the general quality of transferring power from your hips into your upper body, I think that is a general, very valuable trait for athletes, which is why I was such a big proponent of push pressing. And then, with overhead press variations, you tend to see less, bicep tendon tweaks. You're on bench press, I'd see a million injuries pop up, shoulder impingements, pec tears, whereas overhead pressing tends to be safer. And, you don't even need a spotter for it. And it's going to transfer over to all the flatter angles of pressing. So learning the value of overhead pressing and the getting away from the bench press, that was one takeaway I had. But then just having to push, pull, and carry and lift heavy, awkward implements, we would apply that in a conditioning setting in football. So we would have our linemen doing strongman style conditioning where they're pushing and then dragging a sled. They're doing heavy sandbag carry or in place, sandbag over shoulder, incorporating farmer carry work or, zerchers and things like that. And that's kind of the name of the game for playing on the line of scrimmage is you're just going against a 300-pound man who's trying to awkwardly push and pull and torque you. And it's just short burst play after play. So we'd kind of replicate that with strongman implements. So that was a big takeaway. And then, even throwing, you'll see the power clean is kind of this just staple of many, many strength and conditioning programs. Whereas in strongman, I really learned, man, there's a lot of value in just throwing the heavy sandbag. Yeah. Like doing max weight over a 15-foot bar. Great way for rate of force development, triple extension. And you can make it fun and competitive. There's a much lower learning curve. It's a lot easier to, implement that for incoming freshmen than it is going through the rigors of teaching a power clean.
You guys would throw like a single handle sandbag type thing? So you said over a 15-foot bar?
Yeah, so like in strongman, you'll have like the Rogue or the Cerberus sandbag, and you grip the handle with two hands, almost like kettlebell swing type motion, although you want to not coach it like a kettlebell swing. You want to get a little bit more vertical, like a vertical jump. But throwing the sandbag, or they'll do a keg throw in strongman. But I really love the sandbag throw, and we'd either do that with we do it with a heavy med ball a lot in the football setting. That's just the equipment we had access to. But we'd have them throwing, the heavy 30-pound med balls.
We have. Do we have quick access to what you throw on the med ball?
I've got a sandbag throw, or a heavy sandbag throw, where I threw the 60-pounder over 15 foot. It's on my Instagram.
It might take a minute to find it, but see if we can find it.
And just talk, we've been talking a lot about sandbags on this channel recently. We had Ben Patrick come in. We did a whole video on that. But one of the cool things is that capacity of being able to throw something. If somebody has a sandbag at home, you don't have to be super heavy. You don't have to be super yacked or whatever, but just that act of creating that force and throwing something hard and far, that's something you can easily maintain. You know what I mean? And the cool thing is that it doesn't stress. You don't feel a crazy amount of stress from that, and you're getting a lot of amazing power out there.
Absolutely,
right?
and
so
it's
you can
fun.
add that to any workout,
and it's fun. Yeah, so I would, for a lot of my strongman sessions, I'd come in. The first thing I'd do would be throwing the sandbag, because like you said, it doesn't put a lot of wear and tear in you. You don't need to warm up for it. So I'd almost use it as a warm up and a primer.
There you go.
The video?
No, that's the sandbag to shoulder.
I was about to say, this man threw this.
No,
That's
it's a more recent video.
What's the best sandbag that you shouldered? What's that one way right there?
That's a 275 bag.
Nice.
You're fucking cartoonishly huge, man.
Now that's brutal conditioning right there.
Dude, honestly, you remember Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Thor's the mountain?
Yeah.
Like you
there with him.
Right there with him. You need to get in some fucking movies. It's like a huge fuck.
I've had a few feelers put out as far as, maybe getting into Hollywood.
Do it.
Here's my thing though. Here's my thing, Nsima. I don't want to be typecasted as the dummy.
Oh no, you don't have to be typecast as the dummy.
But that's all I would be. That's all they would. I would be the big dumb henchman. I'd be the that guy. Whereas, like, if you're getting me into Hollywood, I want lines.
Hey, look at what The Rock did, though. Look at what The Rock just did with the Smash Machine, right? For a while, he's The Rock, but now he just did something dramatic. Give it time. Just get your fucking ass in there.
But if I establish myself in Hollywood as the big dumb henchman, then I'm forever in that role.
Well, the second that you pop up on screen, everyone's like, he's dead.
Right? Look at Tate Fletcher. He was just in The Boys.
Yeah.
And Tate has a great part in The Boys this recent season, and he's doing a bunch of stuff in there, right? So it's
that guy's died a lot.
He's died a lot, but he's not dying right now. I'm telling you, man.
He's staying alive a little longer.
I wouldn't mind a good honorable on-screen death. I'll take that.
I think it's where all large people have to start.
Yeah.
We gotta be brought.
Hey, maybe you can start in my son's movies.
Yeah.
He's been making some movies. So.
I'm in. If he gives me a sophisticated role to play,
I see.
I'm in.
You want to show everybody your intelligence and your heart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what are these skits about? You got some skits on your Instagram.
Yeah,
stuff. You like to just mess around, have some fun?
I've always had a little bit of a creative flair to me. I've always really enjoyed writing content and bringing out some of the improv comedy stuff. So once I got away from football and the shackles were removed and I could start being me and say whatever I want to say, I started leaning into some of the more humorous content. And it's certainly when it comes to getting engagement on Instagram, that stuff plays pretty well. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing some of the skits and stuff on social media.
Yeah, it's fun.
There we go. That's the so this was a 3 sandbag run, 45 to 55 to 60 pounds. That's
I can just picture him throwing a kid that way.
That's exactly what I just thought about.
One of my skits that I posted was me holding my son and like I'm thinking about throwing him. Then it cuts to a shot of me throwing the
like a little handle on
throwing
him.
the sandbag. Yeah.
Your wife's like, no.
Dude, that is fucking ridiculous how far.
Where like is this like a place that you go to train, or is this like your backyard? What is this?
This is Spider Strength Gym in downtown Raleigh. So that is a strongman gym.
That's sick. It kind of looks like you're throwing the bags over like a billboard.
That's what like
randomly on the side of the street.
Yeah.
Right. No, we've got some cool toys over at Spider Strength. That's where I've done all my strongman training over the last few years. So really, really cool community and a lot of great equipment over there.
I've never tried this in particular. So
it's fun.
But as I'm watching it, I'm like, I would hit the bottom of I'd hit the bottom rung of that spider maybe if I was lucky.
That's just right now.
I know. Yeah, get some work. Yeah, give it some time.
All right, Mark, do you want to hit this strongman stuff more? Because there's something I want to shift to.
Yeah.
I want to know if you
go
want.
ahead.
Okay, so, we were talking in the gym how back in, there's been CrossFit, right? And CrossFit, I think, shows a really good range of what athletes are trying to be able to do, right? So these guys can run, they're doing a lot of endurance stuff. And in the mid 2000s, like 2012, 2015, there was like hybrid athletes. And these would be athletes who do powerlifting and bodybuilding. And that was the hybrid, right?
Right.
And now you're seeing a lot more athletes who are doing more athletic things. So they're lifting, but maybe they're also doing an actual other sport, a field sport, doing some sprinting, right? Building a broad level of athleticism. And we were talking in the gym at like what capacities make for a complete athleticism, because a lot of people and it's good to focus on strength and building that. But there's a lot more capacities if you want to build a broad level of athleticism. So my question to you is, what do you think that kind of looks like? And of course, this will depend on somebody's specific sport or their specific goals. But what are some things that maybe people aren't thinking about as much when it comes to building that? And then later on, I want us to talk about trying to maintain that as you continue to get older.
Yeah, I think number one, building, and we've touched on this a couple times now, building a really good base of general fitness and aerobic capacity. I think if you have a good base of fitness, you can carry that into any specific endeavor you want, whether that's powerlifting and strongman, whether that's endurance training and high rock stuff. If you are in really good shape and just a fit human being, it is going to increase your ability to do anything and be really good at anything, and it's going to help your recovery.
Yeah.
I think another thing is just moving in different planes, and I'm just breaking this down to very basic, general things. Moving in different planes, like you'll see like strength athletes, they're all up and down, forward, sagittal plane. Very rarely are they rotating, are they moving laterally, things like that. So I think having a really good base of fitness, conditioning, aerobic capacity, and getting pretty good at moving in different planes, I think that's big. And then I think just an ability to move in space, whether that's plyometrics, doing a little bit of change of direction work, doing a little bit of sprinting, jumping, things like that. I think that goes a long way. Like if you show me a human who can do all those things, like you're probably showing me a very impressive athlete who could then channel those abilities into any specific sport and have a much better shot of it compared to the guy who's only specialized in this one thing, like a powerlifter. Most powerlifters, they might be freakishly strong, but it's like have them jog a lap around the track and they're dead. Like they can't do it. Have them try to do a very basic change of direction drill. They look like a newborn baby giraffe, right? Have them step off of a low box and try to stick the landing. It's like it shattered, it looks like it shattered their knees. You'll see these specialized guys who they can't move in different planes. They can't rotate. Their fitness and conditioning is terrible. And you watch them try to move in space and it's laughable. Whereas now, to your point, you're seeing kind of this popularity of the true hybrid athlete. You've got we were just talking about Alec Blennis, and you've got, I don't know if you're familiar with guys like Blaine McConnell. He was a former Team USA bobsledder, and he puts out a ton of training content, but super strong guy, but also incredibly fast and explosive. And then we talked about Judd Lionhard.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, Blaine, he's freaky. Some of those bobsledders, it's a sport where you just see some of the absolute freaks of the freaks coming out.
Oh, I saw that clip the other day. That guy doing that jump like that. That's crazy looking.
Yeah, because those bobsledders, they got to be built like linebackers. Most of those guys are, 220, 230, and then they run a 4.5, 4.6, 40, but then they also have to be really strong and explosive.
Ian Danny was like on bobsled team.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, and he's a damn proficient coach as well. And then I think Herschel Walker was recruited to do it. Herschel Walker, had like Olympic level speed in the 100 meter. So,
ooh, okay. You know what? Let's not even switch the topic, but there's something I want to I'm curious about your take here, John. Herschel Walker was somebody who he wasn't really a weight room guy, but he was a high volume calisthenic guy.
Yeah.
And I know that, when it comes to being heavier, a lot of times body weight training is harder for guys to do. But I've been doing a lot more high volume calisthenics because that's something that I started doing as a kid. When I found the weight room, I did some, but then I kind of dropped it. And as I've brought that back, I've been surprised at how that's been translating into the other things that I do in the weight room, along with my martial art. And it makes me curious, like, why do you think that it seems that like high volume type of calisthenic work is not really done that much?
Yeah, it's a good question. You're speaking my language. I'm a huge fan of bodyweight training. Like, I have always made a big effort to maintain my ability to do pull-ups.
Yeah.
Especially as I get bigger. Because when you start getting bigger, you start to lose that ability. And when you start to lack the ability to handle your own body weight, you're opening the door for injury big time. And
Why?
Well, if my shoulder complex and my lats are not strong enough to handle the weight of my own body, right? And now you're asking me to go out in the field and handle the weight of another 300-pound human. That shoulder is susceptible to issues. So in my opinion, like for bigger guys, especially, like, maintain or develop an ability to move your own body weight, to handle the forces of your own body weight. And if you cannot, I think that is a big glaring weakness in the chain. And why does it get neglected? I think it probably just gets looked, it's not a sexy thing to do. It's not fun. It looks from the outside in like this sort of just like low level, overly basic type of training, low bang for your buck.
And I want to also mention, keep going with that train of thought, but like, I think something that would have hit me in my early 20s when I look at that is like, well, I can just press heavy fucking dumbbells. Let me just press the 120s or 130s, or let me bench heavier, let me overhead press heavy, even though my capacity with my own body weight is shit. It's like, there's this equivalency of like, if I can move this much weight, why would I bother moving my body weight? That's rudimentary. That's basic.
Right. And I think, body weight exercises are a little bit more multifactorial. Like, we'll see, like, when you have freshmen come into our football program and they might be a big bencher, but they struggle with push-ups.
Yes.
And we realize it's like, oh wait, it's like a weak core. It's because, you're doing a push-up, you're sort of having to maintain a plank. And we'd realize like, oh, this guy can't do a push-up because his core is super weak. Or, you're doing a pull-up, there's kind of a mobility component. There's kind of you're swinging, there's kind of a balance, kinesthetic awareness component to it. So I think like when you're just on a bench pressing weight, you remove those variables. Whereas when you're doing a body weight exercise, there's a little bit more of that overall body control, the incorporation of the core, the balance component of things. And I think there's a deficit with that a lot. Yeah. So I love doing heavy dips. I love doing weighted pull-ups, glute ham raises. I think single limb training is criminally undertrained. Like, one of the single biggest deficits we would see with football players, especially the young ones, or even older guys who just didn't train this throughout their career, would be unilateral strength. They might be the really great squatter, but then you put them on a single leg and it's crazy how weak they are.
Yeah.
So
there's some things you can add to your training, I think, that can really just help athleticism right away. And one thing that you mentioned was just like single leg, single arm.
Yep.
It just changes everything. Like walking lunges, like there's a dynamic to it. Like it's not like it's hard to do or anything, but it's a different movement pattern than just standing there doing a set of curls. Lunges, step ups, and overhead, single arm overhead pressing. Especially when you get to a heavier weight, somebody might find it easier to use their whole body in a single arm overhead press.
Ooh, I like that.
Versus when you're doing almost something like a log press.
Yeah,
that takes a little bit more coordination.
Right.
Get used to that, like push press. But I like the idea that you were mentioning earlier too about the push press, because as you were pointing out in the gym, some things take a little bit of rhythm. And you wouldn't really think like, oh, a push press is like pretty easy. And it can be pretty easy. But as you start to go up in weight, you'll be surprised at how your coordination starts to really get hammered.
Yeah, synchronizing the hips into the upper body component of a push press is something that a lot of guys struggle with. It's a timing thing. Like, you'll see them, they launch up from the legs, but then it's kind of off sync with their upper body, whereas you need to figure out the timing of transferring that force from the hips into that upper body component. So, I mean, you're spot on. There's a timing and rhythm component to that.
Bodyweight exercises are amazing. I just recently incorporated push-ups, squats, and planks into my workouts. I'm like, you know what, just every time I work out, I'm going to do either 10, 15, or 20 of these. I'm just going to do round after round. So if I'm a little shorter on time, I'll just do 20 reps and I'll do like 3 or 4 sets. If I got more time, I'll do like, 5 sets, 6 sets, 8 sets of 10.
Yeah.
And it's like, when I do that, it's like, okay, I started my workout with 80 push-ups. I started my workout with 80 squats. I started my workout with 80 planks.
Yeah, I think, I think COVID lockdown, opened the eyes to a bunch of people about, the value of bodyweight training. Because for a lot of people, that's all they had. I remember when we were in the lockdown, I was at UNC and we were coaching our guys over Zoom, and we literally had them doing loaded backpack and bodyweight workouts. But I remember coaching a lift from an airplane. So I'd flown to Kansas City to visit my family, and then the airport's shut down. There's no flights, but I've got to get back home. And it was like 2 weeks before I could get on a flight. And I finally got one, but it was the one flight I could take, but it timed up with when we were running a Zoom session for the team lift. So I remember I was sitting in an airplane chair, like, coaching through my phone. And the guys, we'd have, 100 thumbnails popped up on the Zoom screen, and we'd alternate. We'd have one coach demoing the exercises from home, loaded backpack, overhead press, and push-ups, and then the guys would be following along with it, and us coaches would be, chiming in from our computers. It was such a weird time.
Yeah. But and aside on like I think sometimes longevity, when people talk about that, it's kind of like almost seems like a meme now, but a lot of times, like, you'll see 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds in calisthenic parts still doing pull-ups, still being able to, navigate their body weight. And you got to imagine, like, okay, as an athlete, cool. But if you're in your 60s and 70s and you can still be freaking doing like, all those different types of bar movements because you have superior control of your own body.
Yeah.
That goes a very long way.
For sure. I mean, how many strong powerlifters do we know who are, maybe 50 years old, and they can squat the house, but it's like you watch them try to stand up out of a chair. And it's like they can barely get themselves out of a chair. They have to go through a 30-minute warm-up and before they can, can do anything. Yeah. So I think maintaining your ability to bodyweight strength, like you said, I mean, it's going to have a huge longevity and durability component to it.
So this makes me like wonder, in your opinion, because you've programmed so many different types of athletes and so many different same things. And I think some people wonder, well, you guys are talking about all these things. Like a lot of people are coming from probably lifting programs where they're lifting 4, 5, 6 days a week, and they're not working on any of these other capacities. And I would think that you could probably get away with doing certain aspects of these lifts 2 to 3 times a week. And then you can still do lifts on other days, but you can get on all these other capacities, which will still long-term allow you to gain strength, muscle, but you're now building other capacities that will make you more well-rounded.
For sure. And I think part of that comes down to identifying what's your goal. I mean, if you're somebody who your goal is primarily strength, then you're probably going to allocate, a higher percentage of your training towards strength work. Yeah. And a lower percentage towards the other stuff, but you're still working it in. Okay, identify what do I need to get really good at. I'm going to put more of my eggs in that basket, and then you can put the other qualities kind of on minimum effective dose, right? But still keep them in, and then maybe you shift gears in the off season. Okay, I've been focusing the last 4 months on strength work, and 30% of my efforts on the endurance, conditioning, movement type stuff. All right. Competition's over, off season. Now let's shift it the other way. Now let's start focusing, 60% on the other stuff. Jiu-Jitsu, more of the running, the plyometric stuff, and then kind of shift the strength stuff to more minimum effective dose maintenance mode. Or maybe your goal, you're not trying to be great at any one particular thing. Maybe you are just a guy who wants to being well-rounded is your thing. And then it's, you're going to be a little bit more balanced. And like you said, maybe you're only in the weight room 2 to 3 times a week. And that's probably perfectly adequate to reach or maintain the level of strength you want to reach. And then your other sessions are going to be running, jumping, sprinting, martial arts, whatever the case may be.
I will never go to a doctor ever again about my general health. All they want to do is put you on pills.
Really well said there by Dana White. Couldn't agree with him more. A lot of us are just trying to get jacked and tan. A lot of us just want to look good, feel good. And a lot of the symptoms that we might acquire as we get older, some of the things that we might have, high cholesterol or these various things, it's amazing to have somebody looking at your blood work as you're going through the process, as you're trying to become a better athlete, somebody that knows what they're doing. They can look at your cholesterol. They can look at the various markers that you have, and they can kind of see where you're at, and they can help guide you through that.
And there's a few aspects too, where it's like, yes, I mean, no shade to doctors, but a lot of times they do want to just stick you on medication. A lot of times there is supplementation that can help with this. At Merrick Health, these patient care coordinators are going to also look at the way you're living your lifestyle, because there's a lot of things you might be doing that if you just adjust that, boom, you could be at the right levels, including working with your testosterone.
And there's so many people that I know that are looking for, they're like, hey, should I do that? They're very curious. And they think that testosterone is going to all of a sudden kind of turn them into the Hulk. But that's not really what happens. It can be something that can be really great for your health, because you can just basically live your life a little stronger, just like you were maybe in your 20s and 30s.
And this is the last thing to keep in mind, guys. When you get your blood work done at a hospital, they're just looking at like these minimum levels. At Merrick Health, they try to bring you up to ideal levels for everything you're working with. Whereas if you go into a hospital and you have 300 nanograms per deciliter of test, you're good, bro, even though you're probably feeling like shit. At Merrick Health, they're going to try to figure out what things you can do in terms of your lifestyle. And if you're a candidate, potentially TRT. So these are things to pay attention to get you to your best self.
And what I love about it is a little bit of the back and forth that you get with the patient care coordinator. They're dissecting your blood work. It's not like you just get this email back and it's just like, hey, try these 5 things. Somebody's actually on the phone with you, going over every step and what you should do. Sometimes it's supplementation, sometimes it's TRT, and sometimes it's simply just some lifestyle habit changes.
All right, guys, if you want to get your blood work checked and also get professional help from people who are going to be able to get you towards your best levels, head to merrickhealth.com and use code POWERPROJECT for 10% off any panel of your choice. The thing is that when it comes to the minimum effective dose that you mentioned, I think people sometimes get it twisted at the amount of progress that can be made from that minimum effective dose. Because like if you look at new people who, let's say they train some, there's a lot of people, like most people in the population can gain consistent muscle, can gain consistent strength, training 2 days a week.
For sure.
Training 3 days a week. Like
for sure.
They can go very far doing that. But when we get into the maxing out as much muscle as you can in the shortest amount of time, or maxing out the most amount of strength in the shortest amount of time, then we get into those 5-day-a-week type programs, right? So it's one of those things where, like you mentioned, it's important to think about your absolute goal. If you're a field athlete and like you need to gain some size fast, you need to get some weight on the bar quickly for whatever you're doing in your sport, you probably have to max that. But even if you are an athlete and you're fairly proficient, you could still probably make progress on a lower dose, albeit that progress is just slightly slower than it would be if it were 5 days.
Yeah, for sure. No, people would be surprised how much progress they can make with, less frequent exposures. And I think the big part of that is it's quality over quantity a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that doesn't get appreciated enough. A lot of people are over prioritizing the quantity and they're under prioritizing the quality, right? And, you'll see some of the new popularity with like hypertrophy training, more of this low volume, you guys familiar with Paul Carter, lift, run, bang?
Yeah. I'm not.
He's lift, run, bang on Instagram. He's been putting out a lot more of the, just 9 working sets per muscle group per week type of stuff in any one session, 2 sets per exercise, but pushing these sets to, near failure, 1 rep in reserve and just high intensity work. But they're short sessions and it's low volume. And, there's a lot of research to support that being really good for hypertrophy. But the point is, that's an example of quality over quantity. It's not about, getting into the gym 1 million times a week or doing 1 million exercises, 1 million sets and reps. It's you've got a shorter amount of exposures, a shorter or smaller amount of sets that you're going to do, but you're maximizing the quality of those sets.
We sometimes forget that, like training, you can overdo your training so easy.
Yeah.
You know, it's very easy to do. And if you're only lifting weights or you're only running or you're only picking like one thing, it makes it that much easier to overdo it.
Yeah.
Because like most of the time people get addicted to this stuff. They really end up enjoying it and they want to do it frequently. And I think we're all better off having a couple different options. So that way we can still do something nearly every day. And you can still, you know, go on a hike or a ruck and it's not really costing you because you don't ruck 16 miles every day with a 60-pound pack. You do it maybe once a week, and then you have your opportunities where you're doing some lifting. Maybe you have, you know, once a week where you're doing some agility or some sprinting. But if you think about it, you know, someone like Chris Bumstead trains like probably 4 or 5 days a week. Maybe there's a couple extra days in there for cardio or something like that, depending on like where he's at. But it's one of the best physiques we've ever seen. So if he can get along building one of the greatest physiques that we've ever seen with 4 workouts a week, then a lot of other people should be able to get along just fine with getting into like a weight room type setting like twice a week.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And I think that it's another, you know, quality over quantity type thing. And I mean, at the end of the day, you know, the training is the stimulus. It's the time away from your training where you're actually making the adaptations and recovering. So like for even an advanced guy trying to optimize hypertrophy, to me, 4 days in the weight room is ideal. And even a 5-day split is something I've gotten more away from. You know, with myself, like I'm trying to maximize muscle gain right now. I'm in a big gain phase, and I'm training 4 days a week. And I see those 3 days out of the gym as arguably more essential to gaining muscle, or as essential as the 4 workouts that I'm getting per week.
And we've had bodybuilder people on here before that were very regimented with their meals and stuff, and they would say, hey, a missed meal is the same as a cheat meal.
100%.
Like that's the way they viewed it. And you're like, whoa, okay. And so for you, like, doing excessive training, excessive lifting on a non-lifting day is like a no-no, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I love training. I wish the answer would be, oh, just train every day. And, you know, a lot of guys, they're kind of like addicted to it, and they start making bad decisions because they're going with what they want to do. It truly becomes an addictive thing where it's at a detriment to their own development that they're going in and training more and more than they should. So some guys, you really got to reel them in and have them train less.
I know, like Nsima and I, you know, we just have this habit of like drifting off into the gym, you know, when we have guests here and we just start messing with like rope flow. And I think you were doing a couple like pull-ups and stuff, but usually it's like, and I know you did grab a pretty heavy sandbag at one point, but usually it's like pretty low intensity stuff. We're just like, it's like literally just movement. We'll grab a mace, just move around. I've been really trying to work on some of my mobility of my shoulders. And so anytime I get around a mace, anytime I see one, I just grab one and start trying to like twirl it around basically. But
you got to use a different word than twirl. Man, whenever you use twirl, man, it's just twirl it around.
It doesn't work?
Actually, I think
there is a feminine pixie dust.
Yes.
I like it. I'll twirl it around even
going
more
through the gumdrop forest.
Right? Twirling to and fro.
You know, this is a little bit of a tangent, but you made me think of it. I think there's also something to be said for recovery with training in kind of a low arousal state. Like you said, you come into the gym, you kind of just, you know, what sounds fun today, and you do some stuff. You're not getting amped up for it. I really learned to control myself psychologically in training as I started getting stronger. You know, it used to be every heavy session, I'm amped up. It's the nose torque. I'm cranking the music. And then you hit the big lift and you get this big adrenaline dump, and it's like you're just zapped, and then I don't sleep, and then I wasn't recovering. So I started really trying to take a little bit more of a nonchalant psychological approach to training. Just come in. I'm going to train high quality with intent, but just in a more low arousal state. I started listening to calmer music, and
the music makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. So I think, and like Chris Bumstead, and I think you see this with a lot of elite athletes, it's a lot of these guys, they're not overthinkers. Like Chris Bumstead, he's the most like even keeled, chill, can't bother. Like, so are you, Mark. I mean, you're a very even keeled guy, and you'll see it with great athletes. Like sometimes you're too smart for your own good. Like you're so aware of everything. You're
This doesn't
overthinking.
fit my
you're-
programming for today.
Yeah, you're stressing about everything. Whereas these guys, they just go into this flow state and they don't overthink it. They just go. They just do.
On this topic, I think this is actually a very important topic. It's something that I started doing when I was powerlifting a while back, years ago, but it shifted into a lot of my other training. And it actually stemmed from Kelly Starrett mentioning the pain face and supple leopard when doing soft tissue work.
Yeah, it's true.
Because then I realized, wow, when I'm doing a lot of my lifts, I'm also like, you know what I mean? Everything is so I started learning how to try to do high intensity things while maintaining a level of lower arousal. So that doesn't mean I'm just fucking, right? But it also means like when I have to do something hard, can I still keep myself fairly calm and have high output?
Yeah.
And that in and of itself has helped me recover so much better from, because I still train hard, but it doesn't, I think when some people like see some of the things I put out, they're like, that doesn't look like it's hard. It doesn't look like it's hard because it doesn't hit me as that, even though physically it feels difficult.
Yeah. When you watch great athletes, it always looks effortless. Like it always just looks so smooth and easy. And something I've tried to do recently is train with focusing on nasal breathing more. Like, can I go through a hard session doing just breathing through my nose?
What's that helped you with? If it has helped you with anything.
I think it's helped me with just literally with my breathing and just some of my ability to recover between sets. Cause I used to be, classic mouth breather. Whereas developing my ability to just breathe through in and out through my nose between sets, even during the exercise sometimes, I feel like it's improved my, between set recovery. I think it's improved just my kind of my lung capacity a little bit, but then it also helps modulate that arousal state, I think. When you can just be calm between sets, breathe through your nose, I think that goes a long way.
I know the Russian lifters, we had Mikhail Kokylev. He went to Jesse Burdick's gym and did a seminar, and he was talking about caffeine, and he was talking about like pre-workout and stuff. And he's like, when you exercise with these things, it's a little artificial boost before you go and do your workout. And then therefore you are like expending a little bit more energy because you got this little extra boost from the pre-workout. And he didn't really like that. He didn't like the extra stimulation, but he said, hey, on game day or day where you're gonna hit a PR or something like that, then maybe it's more appropriate for those types of days. But the central nervous system is like more sensitive than we kind of give it credit for.
Yeah.
And if you're just compounding things on top of that and then cranking the music and getting real intense, I love all that stuff. It's super fun. I do it weekly, but I also have other days. Like yesterday, we did some legs yesterday. And then I went and ran at UC Davis. I ran at their football field and did the stadium stairs. But that was like nasal breathing. That was like easy workout. And then when I was done, I did my body weight push-ups, squats, planks, and got out of there. So, it's nice that I have, some days where I can go in and kind of hit that higher level or that higher intensity. And then days where things are a little calmer, where I'm just twirling stuff around.
And like with the caffeine and our nervous system being fragile in some ways, I think something that people don't appreciate enough is that physical stress comes in a lot of different realms outside of just training, right? It's if you're stressed in your life, like you're going through a hard time in your life, or your sleep is poor, or you're hammering caffeine, you're getting, adrenal fatigue from that, things like that, stress comes in a lot of different ways, and your body doesn't know the difference between, the stress you're incurring on your nervous system from the barbell versus the stress you're incurring from just being hyper focused on your job and the promotion and the breakup and things like that.
How loud can that 9-month-old baby be?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, my wife's neural fatigue is tapped out right now.
It goes right through your ear. Oh,
yeah.
On this same topic, when it comes to the nasal breathing thing, some people, when they hear about nasal breathing, they're like, that doesn't make a difference. You know what I mean? We've had coaches that have come onto the podcast who have, like, high-level coaches, said, makes no difference, not really something important to pay attention to. But when applied, I think that's one of the things we need to start thinking about, like understanding that there might not be research to back this up, but potentially look at applying it to see what it may bring you as an athlete, because you pay attention to a lot of research, but then you applied something that might not be extremely research-based and you saw some benefit from it. One thing that, actually a cool thing is on Juji Mufu's channel, he had John Brookfield where he did a hardcore home gym. And John Brookfield, my God, this guy has so many cool tools that he uses, but he has this one thing he was doing in the video, and it was a rope pull. He set up this like 3-pronged rope pull. I don't know if you can pull it up, Ryan, because Juji Mufu's recent video, Hardcore Home Gyms, you'll see John pulling this rope. Okay, John was pulling it. Then John, at 69, 70 years old, puts his feet on the wall, has one hand on the ground, and is pulling the rope. You'll see it here in a second if we can go to the timestamp. We'll be able to
It's a great series by Juji Mufu. Shout out to him. So check out his YouTube channel and check out the videos that he does with the people's home gyms.
Yeah, keep going, Ryan. It's going to be right there. And past this part a little bit, Ryan. I want us to see when John gets onto the wall.
Such a simple thing he's doing, but
now,
so difficult.
So John is talking to Juji as he's doing this.
Looks like Spider-Man.
I know that I would find so much difficulty doing this for even 10 seconds. So I didn't want to figure out a way to set this up in my home gym. But John mentioned something key. After he was talking to Juji, he's like, usually I'll actually do this breathing through my nose. And I'll go from side to side. Now, I want you to watch something here. He does a transition, staying on the wall while talking to Juji in a very calm way. Juji's highly skilled. He attempted this, and if I attempted this, I would also not do a great job. But he attempted this, and he wasn't able to do it like John. And John is old. John talks about nasal breathing. And one thing that I found from the application of it is I usually have a heart rate monitor on when I do certain things, like when I do some of my conditioning. I'm able to actually just keep my heart rate lower.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I won't have times when I start breathing and ventilating with my mouth if I want to have a higher heart rate and a higher potential output. But it's a tool that if you want an output that you can maintain for a long period of time, that's what I'll do in jiu-jitsu. Like I'll be breathing through my nose for most of a match. And if I want to turn it up on somebody, they're already breathing through their mouth and I want to speed things up, I start ventilating differently.
Yeah.
So it's like we got to look at these things as not like absolutes, but levers that we can pull on at different times for what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And people miss that.
Yeah, it's always about the big picture. People get overly focused on single individual variables and overanalyze a single individual variable. But kind of what you're alluding to, it's how do you apply it to the big picture? These things are tools. They're small pieces of one big puzzle. And I think for a lot of people, focusing on nasal breathing can have some real benefits.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is, we've got these hairs in our nostrils to help filter the air that we're breathing in. So I think there's some real merit to some of the, protective immune qualities of nasal breathing. And then also it's like, whether it's your body weight strength ability or your ability to breathe through your nose, if there's just something you realize, I can't do that. It's like, ask why. I can't go through a tough training session and breathe through my nose. Maybe we're exposing a little bit of a weakness in the armor that we should address. Oh, I can't do a pull-up. We've probably exposed a weakness that maybe should be addressed. Mm-hmm. So
I think you do a great job with scaling, and that probably comes from your strength and conditioning background. Even with nutrition, do you kind of scale? Because I'd imagine these athletes that you're working with, even though some of these guys are big, you don't have any room to mess with like digestive issues. And so how do you get some people like acclimated to amounts of protein, amounts of carbohydrate, and some of those things?
Yeah, well, it's a quality that I think you can train. I think you can train your body to handle and process and utilize more and more food. A lot of the time, people who come to me with a fat loss goal, they'll comment, oh, I feel like I'm eating more food than ever. And they probably are. They're eating higher food volumes, but they're eating high quality foods, highly digestible, highly bioavailable foods, and they're getting a lot more out of it. And then we're kind of training that metabolism, getting their body better at processing and utilizing more and more nutrients. And then by week 3, they're saying, oh, the food's a lot easier to eat, and I'm feeling myself, getting hungry. But like with the strongman guys who've got to eat really high volumes of food, it's identifying, okay, what are the foods that are going to digest really well? Because at the end of the day, you're only as good as the food that you're actually absorbing and processing and utilizing, right? If I shovel 10,000 calories into my face, but I'm just bloated and I'm not digesting it. Well, I'm not doing anything with those 10,000 calories. They're just hindering the absorption of all the other nutrients that I'm eating. It's slowing down the system. It's either passing through me or being stored as body fat. So, for a lot of the big strongman guys, I might have them start eating less than they normally do. calorically, but they're going to get more out of it. Like I had a guy who I just started working with a couple months back who he wanted to gain weight, and he had been eating kind of a typical, seafood diet, mass gain diet, a lot of mass gainer shakes and crap food. And
I thought you actually meant seafood.
No, the seafood. Okay. Seafood, eat food. But so I got him on a diet, and on paper, calorically, it was less food than he had been eating, but he started gaining weight. And he's like, what the hell? What, I'm eating less, but how am I gaining weight? Well, it's like, you're actually using the food now. I mean, before you were eating 8,000 calories of crap that was just passing right through you, right? Whereas now we're eating food in a way that's actually bioavailable. We're actually giving your body the ability to build muscle. We're developing your insulin sensitivity. So now you're storing some of these carbs as glycogen. Your body's actually getting better at using the stuff, doing a little bit more with less. But then on the flip side, with more Gen Pop people, a lot of them, they're chronically under eating. They've got these suppressed metabolisms. So the first move is start having them eat more, right?
On what you said there, I think some people may hear that and they come from the side of the fit your calories. It fits your mass. So I can eat what I want to hit to this caloric goal, right? Yeah. But I think someone would hear what you just said and think like, oh, that's pseudoscience. If I just get if I get the right protein, if I get the right carbs and fats, it's all going to do the same thing. So you seeing that in application, how much of a difference do you think the calories were for that guy? Because that's a big deal right there.
Yeah. So, so calories in, calories out, like it's on paper, it's true, but there's this whole thing that happens in between the calories going in your face and the calories coming out of your body. Like there's a number of processes that have to occur within the system. A calorie at the end of the day, it's a unit, it's a physics unit. It's a unit of energy, and what your body does with that unit of energy, it's not the same for everyone. Yeah. So like I said, with the guy who, I think he was eating somewhere in the realm of like 8,000 calories on paper is what was going into his face. Mm-hmm. And, the diet I got him on was probably more like 6,000 calories. So, we're talking about a decrease of, 2,000 calories. I'm kind of just spitballing numbers here, but he started gaining weight because those calories in were actually, for lack of a better term, kind of sticking.
Yes.
And his body was actually using the calories. Yeah. So like your metabolic capabilities, what is occurring at the digestive level, all of these things matter and are going to influence the calories out component of things, Yep.
Yeah, calories definitely aren't equal, especially when we consider protein. If you start to switch your macros around and you have a very low protein amount and you go to a higher protein amount, a lot of times you'll see people gain some muscle mass.
Yeah, so like a good way to illustrate this, they ran a study. I can't recall the exact study off the top of my head, but basically they had a group of people, they were overfeeding, feeding them in a calorie surplus, and they'd feed one group a surplus of just protein. They'd feed one group a surplus of just carbohydrates, and they'd feed one group a surplus of just fats. But calories were equated. But the group that was overfeeding with protein gained far less weight than the group that was overfeeding with body fat, because protein is going to have a higher thermic effect of food, right? Your body has to burn more calories actually processing and utilizing and digesting protein. So your body's burning more calories, utilizing more protein, and then carbohydrates kind of an intermediate. Whereas with dietary fat, it's in the name. Dietary fat physiologically has a much easier time being stored as fat in the body. So a calorie is not just a calorie. What your body does with that calorie matters.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. We were talking a little bit in the gym about like acceleration, and you've sent me over some programming, and I just think that you do a good job. It's really like well thought out, and it's like, what's the athlete I'm working with, and what's their previous level of capacity for this thing, and then you start out at a very like modest level. And I think a lot of times people aren't willing to, like, I guess for yourself, when you've tried some new things, when you tried Strongman and you tried some of these things, did you apply a lot of those same rules to yourself when you got into these things, or did you get maybe a little too excited and want to like?
I've probably been a good example of do as I say, not as I do right. At many points in my career. I've gotten way overzealous with finding a new thing I love. I'm like a kid in a candy store and I want to play with the new shiny toy. And That's the value of working with a coach, right? Working with someone who's going to steer the ship and kind of not have that emotional attachment to the thing and help kind of put a governor on you. So, I've definitely gone too hard, too fast with new endeavors because I was coaching myself.
I think it's a good thing for people to think about is like, what is your exposure to something? Like if you're going to go out and run or try any of the stuff that we're talking about. I mean, even rope flow can make you pretty sore if you've just never done it before.
Yeah.
A lot of these things are, you haven't had exposure to in the past. They can potentially wreak havoc on you if you're not careful. So you got to just think about it a little bit.
For sure. Like, especially with someone trying to get into running, I had a guy who I'm working with nutrition wise who, he let me know, I just started getting into running. I ran, 5 miles last week. And it's like, well, now I have shin splints and plantar fasciitis and all that stuff. So like with running, it's a lot of pounding and wear and tear on your feet, on your lower legs and on your knees. So you got to kind of train your tissue to be able to handle that. So there's absolutely a progression. And that was a big weight room application we'd have in the football setting with our guys, was preparing their tissue for field work. So, we like at Houston, the Texans, we'd utilize a triphasic training approach in the weight room in the off season. So, the first couple weeks they're doing heavy, overloaded, slow eccentric work, followed by a few weeks of dynamic eccentrics to a hard pause, isometric hold. And what that was doing was the eccentric work was preparing the tissue to absorb forces, then the dynamic eccentric to hard stop pause, teaching their joints and tissue to handle that deceleration at high speed, absorb and stop that force, which would then have carryover to their high speed change of direction work. When we're asking them to make a hard cut, well, they're coming in at high speed, they have to decelerate on a dime, then reaccelerate the other way. That puts a lot of eccentric force on the tissue that's having to decelerate their body and then reaccelerate them in another direction. So we would prepare that tissue in a controlled setting with weight room work, with plyometric work and things like that to prepare them for the field.
So for you, let me ask you this. Is there anything you have in your training right now that is, because you mentioned you're training 4 days of lifting. So what do those other 3 days look like in terms of some of the stuff that you do?
So I'm doing a ton of walking right now. So right now, I've got a good little morning routine. I'll wake up. First thing out of bed, I get ice cold shower for 60 seconds. It snaps me awake. Then I'll go down. I immediately hydrate 32 ounces of room temperature water, and I'll have all my morning supplements. And I actually have been experimenting with a few of the mitochondrial peptides. And
what are those? Like, what are those called?
So I for the last 6 weeks, I was utilizing MOTS-C, SLU, SLU, PP332, and then SS31. As well as I use some BPC 157, both injectable and oral. The oral to help address some gastric inflammation I've been dealing with. But
you feel that that's helping?
Yeah. So, and you and I talked about it a little bit off air. I was not overly impressed with the injectable BPC 157 in terms of a difference I saw with soft tissue, joints, aches and pains. Now, some people claim to have kind of miracle results from it, but I didn't see a lot from it. But with the oral BPC 157, I had my gallbladder removed a couple of years ago, and I've dealt with some digestive issues, and I got to eat a lot of food. I've suffered from chronic acid reflux for years, which starts to put a bunch of wear and tear on your esophagus. But the oral BPC 157, it has some direct local effects on the gut, on the intestines, and I saw a lot of benefit from the oral version of BPC. But anyway, back to your question, Nsima. On the off days, so I'll get up, do my morning routine, and then I'll go for a 30-minute walk. Okay. I'm incorporating more zone 2 cardio. So, I'll get on the bike, the rower, the skier.
Do you mess with rucking at all? I feel like you'd like that.
I haven't, but I'd love to.
Okay.
Just with my schedule, the baby and the wife and everything, I haven't really been able to get out and do as much hiking and rucking as I'd like to. But I that sort of thing would be great.
I'll get a rucksack sent out your way because like they're really the way you just put it on, put like a 35 or 45 whatever plate in there, and with how big you are, like it's surprising. it doesn't beat you up, but it's a nice load on your walk. You know what I mean?
I'll take you up on that. You know, and so I'm going into this big gain phase right now where I'm trying to really, go all in on hypertrophy. And in years past, I would be pretty anti-cardio at this point. Yeah. Not necessarily because I truly believed it was an interference effect, but I just wasn't bought into it. I didn't value it. Whereas now, more than ever, we talked about having that great base of fitness and aerobic capacity. Now I'm putting a premium on keeping up with my cardio work as I get bigger.
Nice.
So, I'm going to have cardio regimented throughout the entirety of this gain phase. So post-workout, I'm doing 15 minutes of zone 2 cardio. And then on some of my non-training days, I'll have just a true cardio day, zone 2 stuff. I'll incorporate some of the rucking, but then I'll do one day a week where it's high intensity interval training. So I'll do a bunch of, med ball slam, battle rope, tire sledgehammers, prowler pushes, things like that, kind of every minute on the minute type stuff. So, I'm much more here recently bought into the value of just being in great shape and that only benefiting, everything I'm doing in terms of getting bigger and stronger and putting on muscle. I think guys, as you get bigger, if your fitness isn't keeping up with the added size, that's an issue. Right? If your aerobic capacity, your blood flow, your cardiovascular health is falling behind your size, you're going to start under recovering. Your sleep is going to suffer. Your ability to push in training is going to suffer. So I'm really putting a premium on staying really, really fit and in good condition as I get bigger.
Power Project family, how's it going? Now, over the years, I've learned a lot from guests that have come onto this podcast, and I've taken the time to learn many different movement practices. So, for example, if you wanted to learn rope flow, which is a practice I think is just beneficial for everyone, I have a free rope flow foundations course at school.com/thestrongerhuman. Now, the Stronger Human community actually has over 11,000 members, so it's a great community there, but you'll also be able to learn rope flow for free, along with many other things I teach in there, like kettlebell flow, kettlebell juggling, all that good stuff. So head over there. Along with that, if you're looking for where to get your equipment as far as ropes, maces and clubs, sandbags, all that good stuff, you can head over to thestrongerhuman.store. And on that site is where I have all of the different functional fitness equipment that I use to become a stronger human. So check those out. And let's get back to the episode.
Okay. Yeah, there was a study done recently where they had people walk for 3-minute intervals. Have you heard about that?
I don't think so.
So you do like 3 minutes, you walk, not necessarily as fast as you can, but you pick up the pace, you walk a little faster. Then for 3 minutes, you just go back to like a normal pace and you go back and forth and you do like 5 sets of it. And I think Dave Asprey posted about it today, but the study came out like a while back, like maybe almost like a year ago. And just saying like it's I forget what percentage, and I don't know exactly how they tested. I don't know how well,
Sure.
I don't know how good of a test this was or whatever, but it's just interesting. It's like anytime you have an ability to enhance something, it sounds like a great opportunity. Like even just with walking, Nsima was telling me like he walks with some weight, and I've been walking with vests and stuff, but I just haven't really thought that much about walking with weight. We've walked around the block here before with like a dumbbell or something like that, but I just been taking to it more recently, and I'll grab like I have like a sandbag, I got 20, 30, 40.
Like the training sandbag.
Yeah. I'll just grab whatever, throw it around my neck. I have that bag, that 35-pound Bulgarian bag. Is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah, those.
Yeah, so I throw that one around my neck or something and just go on a walk with it. So anytime you have an ability to enhance a walk a little bit, because I think walking is awesome.
Yeah.
But I think that like you don't want to make it annoying to the point where you're not doing it anymore.
Right.
Like that definitely is not a good idea, because you want to keep walking fairly simple, but if you can amplify it a little bit and it's not too annoying, I think it's a good thing to try.
Yeah, for sure. If you can like little ways like that to just add a little bit of added intensity to it, where, okay, maybe I'm not walking quite as long or as far, but because I've added weight or I've increased the speed at different intervals, I'm getting more out of a little bit less. And you're adding kind of a novelty and fun component when you bring in some of those other modalities. So I like that.
So
And just walking with sandbells, I think it's a sandbell.
And I think this is the thing. I think that long term it'll play a difference, because you're 300.
I'm about 300 right now.
300 pounds. If you just had like a 45-pound rucksack on you, or even a 35-pound or whatever, you're technically walking around at 335 or 345, and you could still walk the same distance you always walk because it doesn't beat you up that much.
Right.
But compound that over the weeks and months, like all those steps you're taking at 345 pounds adds up. You know what I mean? So it's something that I've noticed makes actually a substantial difference for, again, just a kind of minimal input on top of something I already do.
I'm in. Please, you've got me thinking about it for sure. So, when I get back, I'm going to start throwing on some weight.
Yeah,
I might, carry the baby around on the, the little koala vest deal. So,
what are some of the things that you really want to try to make sure that you maintain and you keep? I did hear you say you think, a lot of your heaviest lifts are kind of in the rear view mirror these days. But I imagine like you probably still want to keep, like guys, you throwing a sandbag over the thing and just probably want to keep some of those capacities, I would imagine. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I've come to terms with the fact that I think my prime is behind me in terms of, the heavy lifts. So, as I get further into, this new season of life where it's a lot more coaching and I'm a business owner and a little bit more of a public image, I think getting more into the kind of hybrid, well-rounded space is more important to me. So I always want to be strong. I always want to possess a good physique. And right now, the one area I am kind of trying to push to an extreme still is the physique side of things. It's something I can do, whereas I'm probably not going to deadlift, 900 pounds. Those days are probably behind me, but I can go all in with the physique. But at the same time, I want to show that, hey, you can have a good physique and still be able to be strong, but also be able to move. And that's, I'm a strength and conditioning coach by trade. And, I work with a very wide variety of clientele, and I want to have some, appeal and connection to all these different types of people. So I think, and you and I kind of talked about it, maintaining the ability to move, to jump, to change directions, to rotate, to throw, while having a great physique to back it up, and while still, being one of the stronger humans in the world, although, not in that 0.001% percentile I was, previously chasing.
What about hitting a heavy bag or anything like that? You mess around with anything like that?
I haven't. It would be great.
I'm just saying, like
incorporate.
Rotation and all those kinds of things.
I've always thought, I've been intrigued about, hey, maybe I dip my toe into the martial arts world, whether it's boxing or jiu-jitsu or anything like that. I feel like that's sort of this trajectory so many guys are on. It's like they get once they can't lift heavy anymore, they get into jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But I would be intrigued about potentially getting. I think I could be a decent boxer.
Yeah,
I've kind of got the footwork from
long-ass
football
reach.
days. I've got the reach and everything, and I'm always for finding something new to really pour into.
Right.
And all you need to just install a heavy bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to go as deep because you could go as deep into like starting and getting into sparring with people and stuff, which would be fun. But a heavy bag can just allow you to train the movement.
Something I know about myself at this point is I'm such an all or nothing guy. It's like once I go down the rabbit hole of hitting a heavy bag, then it's like I'm joining a boxing club, and then I'm sparring with people. Then I'm booking my first fight. It's to a fault with me. I've always been like extremely all or nothing. Like if I'm going to focus on nutrition, it's like bodybuilding lifestyle. It's hard for me to find happy mediums. So it's served me well in aspects of life, and it's probably been a detriment in others.
It's probably not that hard to get clients when you're this big and jacked.
I like to walk the walk. It's always been important to me. I love doing it personally, but then I always want to show my guys, my athletes, clients, potential clients and athletes, like, hey, I live this, I do this. And it helps me stay in tune with my own coaching, right? It stimulates my own creativity, exploring new methods of training, new methods of dietary approaches, new supplementation. And as long as I have skin in the game, I am going to constantly be curious and exploring and experimenting and learning more, and then I'm able to apply that to my coaching. But then also, I think people that work with me respect it.
Let me ask you this. As far as rotation, because you mentioned moving rotationally, because you do med ball stuff. So what do you think for you are practices that you use for benefiting rotation?
So I've been doing a lot more heavy loaded rotation work. And this is also something that I've kind of changed opinions on, at least how I'm implementing it, is I used to be in sort of the camp of squatting and overhead pressing and deadlifting and carrying is enough to train your core. And that's all I need. Whereas now I'm much more in the camp of really specifically training my core and loading it.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I'll do like heavy cable rotation work where I'm using the entire stack and I'm doing, you know, sets of 8. And, you know, I'm doing this exercise where I'm in kind of a hinge position, almost like a golf swing, and a heavy loaded rotation, big loaded stretch, things like that. And then I'll do, you know, dynamic rotation with the med ball throws, you know, at higher speed. But really loading the core in different planes of motion, especially rotation, has been sort of a new thing I've implemented recently.
Ooh, I got some stuff I want to show you on the cable machine. It's with Mark's, I don't know if you fucked with it, but it's with the shake strap thing. Yeah. But I think you'll enjoy it.
Absolutely.
More stuff to add in.
What are you feeling when you do that? Like you said, you like to have it, you know, loaded pretty heavy. Are you, you know, like twisting in that direction? Like, are you having it kind of pull on you a little bit?
Yeah, I use the weight to kind of pull me into a loaded stretch. And I realized, you know, with so much of the, you know, bodybuilding strongman, you're all, like I said, sagittal plane, forward, straight up and down and you know, I'm kind of like ungluing my hips and just ungluing my midsection.
I like that motion that you're showing. It's kind of like a golf swing.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I took some of that stuff from, we were just talking about him, Alec Blennis. He will do crazy heavy loaded rotational core work. But yeah, I realized I was so rigid and stiff in my ability just to turn and rotate. But then adding in that loaded component where the weight is helping literally pull me into the stretch eccentrically, and then I'm pulling it back the other way concentrically. It's really helped loosen me up, open me up. My low back feels better.
Hey, yo.
So
Ryan, can you play that video of the rotational work that we do here at Super Training? The video that we posted the other day of the guy twerking his hips. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Is it on your Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The golf guy.
Yeah, I think Nsima sent it to me.
Yo, but isn't that like the way
that's
you broke
legit
it down?
as shit. Yeah. It looks amazing. But yeah, it's funny looking.
You got to play the sound. I guess we'll get demonetized actually, so we can't play the sound. The music makes it so much better.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at here. Oh, wow.
Oh, hey now. Basically spanking that ball in front of him.
No, it's obviously goofy to look at, but there is really something to be said for the quality of being able to move your hips independent of your upper body. That kind of hip torso dissociation is big time.
I started working on that like maybe 2 years ago, and before that I didn't even know I could do that.
Yeah,
and that was like I didn't know my hips move that way. I'm like, holy shit.
That was something I learned from throwing discus. You know, kind of that you're rotating at the hips and then the upper body's kind of behind it, you know. And you want to talk about some of the freaks that come out of the throwing world.
Oh, right. Yeah, they're so explosive. Yeah, you can kind of rotate your hips, you know, that way, or you can pull your hip up or down. Something you can kind of almost like shorten your leg and lengthen your leg. You just, I don't know, we just lose track of these things where you get so into the particular things that you're doing. And it's hard to make time for everything.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, are you still like, so in your pursuit of bodybuilding and in pursuit of like just getting big and slapping on some weight, you did mention you're doing a little cardio via like some walking and stuff. Are you still like sled dragging or farmer carrying or any of that stuff? Or is that stuff pushed aside for a little while?
Yeah. So whenever I do my high intensity interval training, right now I'm doing once a week, I'll usually do some sort of strongman modality with it. I really like doing the yoke or farmer carry, the sandbag front carry, and I'll do kind of like I said that Joe Ken was programming, you know, 10, 12, 15 rounds, 50-foot carry as fast as possible, every minute on the minute, stuff like that. And then on my upper body days,
Sounds fun, but brutal.
It is fun, and that's a big part of it for me was, you know, conditioning and cardio has always been boring. Whereas finding a way to make it more kind of up my alley with things I enjoy, things I kind of put a little bit more competitive fire into, that was a key for me to get more bought into conditioning work. So, if you could find a way to make mundane conditioning, less mundane, make it more competitive and mentally stimulating, then it's a good way to go.
Yeah, we did some sprints and some sandbag tosses the other day, and it was pretty brutal.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, with Jordan Chavez, and he was totally dead afterwards. Like it took him like maybe 30 minutes or something for his skin tone and his legs. His legs were just
right.
I'd never had my butt pumped up like that before.
Oh yeah, major fucking pump on the legs and quads.
It's pretty crazy.
But it's one of those. It's another good thing. Just understanding that you can sprint on multiple implements, because we did some max, I think 15 calories as fast as you can on the air bike. Then we went to sandbag to shoulder, and then we were rotating, and we did that maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yes, I mean that's brutal, but it's fun.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but the thing is again the capacity of sprinting. Right. I think a lot of times we think of just sprinting, which is good. You want to be able to do that, but sprinting on other implements will at least let you have that output. Sprinting with a sled, pushing a sled as hard as possible.
Safer sometimes,
right? Safer for people too. So
yeah, it does. Having the weight slow it down is going to make it safer.
Where can people find you?
Let's see. You can find me on Instagram, What the Heck 71. Just search John Heck. You can find me on YouTube. I've gone a lot harder on growing this YouTube channel. It's
let's go.
It's Hammer and Chisel Performance on YouTube. You just search John Heck, and then you can go to my website, hammerchiselperformance.com. Hit me up for my coaching services, training programs, ebooks, all that stuff. But then I've got my podcast, the Hammer and Chisel Performance Podcast. Guest episodes every Tuesday. Got 50 out right now.
Awesome.
But it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. So yeah, you were a big inspiration for me with getting into podcasting, getting into YouTubing, man. So it's you've been probably the biggest inspiration to me in really diving into the fitness industry,
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for the content too, because I watch a lot of your stuff. So appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Strength is never weak. This week is never strength. Catch you guys later.